What's up everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Conor McGregor predicts fight with Michael Chandler. The big reveal from the UFC of the fight between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler finally arrived during the UFC 300 press conference after a year of waiting and speculating. The pair coached opposite each other on season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter, and though we've had a handful of unofficial announcements from McGregor along the way, we now finally have a date as the pair will face off in the main event at UFC 303 during International Fight Week in June. By the time the fight finally happens, it will have been shy of just 3 years since Conor last appeared in the octagon, when he broke his tibia and fibula during his defeat to Dustin Poirier at UFC 264 in July of 2021. Speaking with James Corden on his The Life of Mine show, McGregor explained how he plans to use the injury to his advantage when he fights Chandler. The Irishman said, "I am Terminator now. I have a titanium rod that goes into the knee and down to the bone, right down to my ankle. It's unbreakable. I wish for and I will work for landing this kick with this steel bar in my leg against an opponent and getting them out of there. I want to see a picture of myself in the octagon with my leg broken, and then I want to see a picture of myself in the octagon with my leg wrapped around my opponent's neck or head, putting him out and side by side." Chandler also made his own bold prediction for the fight earlier this week when he appeared on the MMA Hour, telling Ariel Helwani that he believes a win for him would spell the end of McGregor's career inside the octagon.
It might be the last time we ever see Conor fight, right? And I don't say that with ill will, saying, I'm going to retire him, I'm going to put him in a body bag, and I'm going to all these different things. No, man. It's we'll see where he stacks up in the world of the high class fighters in this division, whether it be 155, 170. I'm a top ranked guy, ranked inside the top. I guess the new rankings came out. I kind of dipped a little bit now, top 7. So we'll see where he stacks up, and it could be the last time that we ever see him. So people have to buy the pay-per-view because it could be the last time that you see Conor, and you see me climb up to the next rung, and then there's bigger and brighter lights on me after this fight.
Also in the wake of UFC 300, Alex Pereira could become the GOAT of the UFC. The level of success achieved by Alex Pereira during his short run in the UFC has been quite outstanding. Poton has defeated 5 former UFC champions during just 8 appearances in the octagon, that being Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Jan Blachowicz, Gary Prohaska, and now Jamal Hill. He has headlined at Madison Square Garden twice and has also been the main event at UFC 300. He's captured the middleweight title, then gone on to win the heavyweight title and defend it. This is quite a jaw-dropping list of accolades for a man who only has 12 professional mixed martial arts bouts to date. And it seems Pereira isn't done yet. He has announced in his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan that he would like to fight at heavyweight, and Chael Sonnen believes if the Brazilian were to become a champion in the 3rd weight class, then he would surely be in the running to be considered the greatest of all time. Speaking on the Fighter and the Kid podcast, Sonnen said,
"If he became champ, and he is the first person ever that could actually do it, where we stand back and go, yeah, he actually might be able to.
Best shot, yep.
If he did that, we're not out having a conversation on who the GOAT is. We will just refer to him as the GOAT. And to refer to a guy who, what we thought we knew back in 1993, he breaks all these rules and we have to stand back and say, and you're the GOAT, he might be."
The former 2-weight Glory World Kickboxing Champion called for a heavyweight fight in the native Brazil on UFC 301 in 2 weeks. And while Dana White poured cold water on that idea, he didn't rule it out entirely. Could we see Pereira become the first triple-weight UFC champion? Next up, let's take a look at Jorge Masvidal confirms his return to the UFC. Jorge Masvidal announced his retirement from mixed martial arts directly after his loss to Gilbert Burns at UFC 287 in April of 2023. The defeat was his 4th in a row, with 2 of those coming in title fights against Kamaru Usman. Gamebred's retirement didn't last long, however, as he announced in late 2023 that he wanted to make a run into the boxing world to take on fellow UFC veteran and former opponent Nate Diaz. The pair are slated to square off in the ring at Kia Forum in Inglewood, California on June 1st, and Masvidal has been speaking to reporters at the Baddest Tour press conference in Miami earlier this week and revealed he is eyeing up a return to the octagon in the near future. Speaking to MMA Junkie, he revealed he has a list of names he wants to fight in the boxing ring before eventually stepping back into the UFC again.
I'm trying to get some big checks, you know what I'm saying, break some necks. I wouldn't mind taking on Logan Paul and rearranging his face. He's a hell of a fighter with the boxing from when he comes from being an influencer. He did some good things against Mayweather, but I think I can end that dude, man. I'd like to fight Logan. If I get my hands on Mayweather, Pacquiao down the road, any of these guys, other guys I'd like to fight, and definitely going to come back to the UFC and give a W for my city, for my family, my kids, for everybody who believes in me. I got to go back to UFC.
Masvidal became the inaugural BMF champ when he beat Nate Diaz back in November of 2019. That bout is the last time we saw his hand raised, but it seems he's undeterred by his lack of recent success and has big plans for his fighting future. There's interesting developments in the featherweight title picture now, as Ilia Topuria responds to Max Holloway over title fight. Ilia Topuria has been circling the newly crowned BMF champion in the aftermath of Max Holloway's breathtaking win over Justin Gaethje, and was quick to both offer his congratulations and seemingly call out Holloway via social media in the days after UFC 300. While Holloway's initial response was very respectful, it seems now that Topuria has decided to begin poking the bear ahead of what would be one of the most eagerly anticipated fights the UFC could make this year. Ilia said on Twitter, "The only thing questionable about me is whether I finish you by KO or submission. I just beat the guy that beat you not once, not twice, but 3 times. You now have the one thing that keeps you relevant and that would grant you a money fight, the BMF belt. I no longer fight for money but for legacy. Winning that belt while holding my title will cement me as the first to hold both belts, the first to knock out Volk, and what most certainly will happen when we fight, the first to put you to sleep. Something to calm you down is this: God doesn't shame anyone. You will have a worthy defeat against a champion who will be remembered for eternity. I decide who, when, and where. If you don't like the terms, I'm sure Ortega will oblige." Holloway is the #1 ranked contender at 145 pounds, and although many observers feel the win over Gaethje opens up a lot of doors for him at 155 pounds going forward, the announcement of the Dustin Poirier vs Islam Makhachev lightweight title fight for UFC 302 means a fight with Topuria represents Holloway's best opportunity to add to his silverware collection. Next up, Chris Weidman disrespects Alex Pereira after UFC 300. UFC commentator Daniel Cormier expressed his confusion when speaking to Chael Sonnen on their Good Guy Bad Guy podcast about how Alex Pereira has managed to achieve so much inside the UFC octagon with such a glaringly large hole in the skill set.
Chael, with all due respect, because Alex and I have a great relationship, he can't wrestle. He does not know how to wrestle. When they grab his leg, he kind of just falls down. He can't wrestle.
Offensively or defensively. Correct.
No. When he can't wrestle, I'm like, how is this happening when he can't wrestle? But he has got this singular skill set that is so good that it does not matter what he can't do. He's so good at what he does that he's now the best in the world.
And it would seem Cormier isn't the only former UFC champion feeling a little bewildered by Pereira's success, as Chris Weidman expressed similar views this week while appearing on Michael Bisping's Believe You Me podcast. Weidman likened the situation to Ben Askren's arrival in the UFC. Askren came in as a decorated wrestler who had yet to be tested by an elite striker.
It's hard for, and I saw Cormier say this too, and I agree, it's hard for me to get fully behind Pereira because I do see such a opening with the wrestling. And he hasn't really fought wrestlers who it's hard to deal with, but it's almost so crazy, and it's such a deficiency based on what we've seen so far. It's like a striker looking at Ben Askren and thinking, how the hell is this guy the world champion? He was able to do it in Bellator. He was able to do one FC or whatever it was. I mean, the guy had an unbelievable MMA career, and he had no striking at all. Like it looked awful, but he was so good at wrestling, he was able to do it. This guy is kind of the opposite. I would almost say he's as bad as Askren is with wrestling, as Ben Askren is with striking. And this guy may go down as one of the best fighters of all time.
Next up, Belal Muhammad goes off on Leon Edwards. Welterweight contender Belal Muhammad has lashed out at 170-pound champion Leon Edwards this week, as his frustrations at being ignored for a title shot seem to be bubbling over. Aside from a fight against Edwards back in 2021 that ended in a no contest, Muhammad has won 9 in a row and looks to be the standout contender for a shot at the title. Rumors circulated in the lead up to UFC 300 that Leon Edwards would be fighting in the main event, but the UFC offered the fight to Khamzat Chimaev, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and the current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. All three apparently turned the opportunity down due to the event's proximity to Ramadan, and Muhammad was never approached, despite both being the #2 ranked contender in the division and having a history of fighting during Ramadan. Speaking during an appearance on Middle Easy, Muhammad tore into Edwards.
No, I hate his guts. I've never, they're trying to avoid me, him trying to act like, downplaying my accomplishments and telling me I don't deserve it, I never earned it. That stuff does nothing but piss me off, and it's fueling me with hatred for this guy, and I just can't wait to get in there and get my hands on him. Dana White being the promoter he is, I gotta make it seem like Leon Edwards, this big guy, this beast that said yes to 3 dominant guys, and they all turned him down because they're afraid of him because Leon is so good. But Leon sucks. He sucks in fighting, he sucks in talking, he sucks in promotion, and when I fight him, I'm gonna show you guys how bad he is.
Next up, UFC fighter gets disrespected by Joe Rogan. Renato Money Moicano is still riding high after his win at UFC 300 last week. Moicano finished his opponent Jalen Turner by TKO in the second round, and as a result, found himself propelled upwards in the UFC's updated lightweight rankings by 3 places into 10th. The Brazilian has now won 5 of his last 6 fights, and his winning form, coupled with his hilarious post-fight interviews, seems to be helping him build a great rapport with the fan base. During his interview with Joe Rogan in the Octagon at UFC 300, Moicano told Rogan that he has started his own podcast called Show Me the Money, and told him that he's going to be the best in the business. He also told the watching fans that Rogan would be his first guest on Monday after the fights. In a rather hilarious turn of events, which his team shared on the Show Me the Money Instagram account, Moicano turned up on set for the episode alongside UFC welterweight Gilbert Burns to find out that not only Rogan was not there, but the world's biggest podcaster had seen his team's messages and didn't reply.
Where is Joe Rogan, my brother? Where is Joe Rogan, my brother?
We tagged him, we DM'd him. You know what's funny is we DM'd him from the Show Me the Money pod. Guess what he did, bro? He left us on scene.
Really?
No respect.
Hey, Joe Rogan, no respect. From all the time I'm gonna check this out, my brother. No, but jokes aside, was a great weekend, great card, and the podcast is going good. Everybody is start to talk about the podcast, so let's do our part and make a good job.
Regardless of Rogan's no-show, it seems Moicano's star continues to rise. The Brazilian has called for a fight with Paddy Pimblett on the upcoming UFC card in Manchester, and that would certainly be a fight the fans would get excited about.